The courtroom was already heavy with tension when the moment happened, the kind of silence that presses against the chest and makes every breath feel loud. People had gathered expecting a routine legal hearing, a wealthy CEO divorcing his wife, another cold story of power and paperwork. But when his hands suddenly rose and struck his pregnant wife across the face in front of everyone, the air shattered. Gasps rippled through the room, time seemed to freeze, and in that single brutal second, everything changed forever. Before this story goes any further, take a moment to pause. If you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in standing up for those who cannot protect themselves, please like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, comment your thoughts, and subscribe to Kindness Diaries. Your support helps stories like this reach hearts that need them most. Her name was Aaliyah, and until that day, she had lived most of her life quietly in the shadows of powerful men. She came from a modest background, raised by a single mother who worked long hours and taught her that dignity mattered more than money. Aaliyah was intelligent, gentle, and resilient, but she learned early that the world rarely rewards softness. When she married Zion, a rising corporate star who later became one of the country's youngest CEOs, she believed love could protect her from the harshness of the world. At first, it seemed true. Luxury replaced struggle, admiration replaced hardship, and promises replaced fear. But as Zion's power grew, his patience shrank, and love slowly turned into control. Behind closed doors, Aaliyah's life became a careful dance of silence. She learned when to speak and when to stay quiet, when to smile and when to lower her eyes. The emotional neglect came first, followed by humiliation disguised as jokes, and finally moments of anger that left invisible wounds. When she became pregnant, she hoped the child would soften him, that becoming a father would bring back the man she once knew. Instead, the pregnancy became another inconvenience in his carefully managed life. He accused her of being weak, of slowing him down, of existing only because of his generosity. The day he filed for divorce, Aaliyah was already exhausted in ways sleep could not fix. She had tried to leave quietly before, but every attempt was crushed by his influence and threats. He controlled lawyers, media, and narratives. By the time they stood in court, he had painted her as a dependent burden, someone ungrateful and incapable. She stood there alone, one hand instinctively resting on her pregnant belly, facing a room filled with strangers who only saw wealth and reputation, not fear and pain. The courtroom itself felt cold and distant, its tall walls echoing authority and judgment. The judge presiding over the case was known for her strictness and fairness, a woman with decades of experience and an unshakable reputation. She sat elevated, watching everything with calm, unreadable eyes. No one noticed the subtle tremor in her hands when she first looked at Aaliyah, or the way her gaze lingered just a second longer than necessary. As the proceedings continued, Zion's arrogance grew bolder. He spoke with confidence, dismissing Aaliyah as emotionally unstable, claiming she was using pregnancy as leverage. His words were sharp, carefully chosen to wound without leaving evidence. When Aaliyah tried to explain herself, her voice faltered, not from weakness, but from years of being silenced. The room seemed to lean toward Zion, his tailored suit and confident posture commanding attention. Then it happened. In a moment of uncontrollable rage, perhaps triggered by the judge questioning his claims, Zion turned toward Aaliyah. His face twisted with anger, and before anyone could react, his hand struck her. The sound echoed, horrifyingly loud. Aaliyah stumbled, her body instinctively curling inward to protect the life inside her. Tears welled in her eyes, not just from pain, but from the final collapse of hope that anyone would stop him. The courtroom erupted. Shocked murmurs, people rising from their seats, guards moving forward. But before anyone else could act, the judge stood up. Not slowly, not calmly, but with a force that silenced the entire room instantly. Her voice, when she spoke, carried authority layered with something deeper, something raw and personal. Her eyes were no longer distant. They were burning. What the court did not know, what Zion could never have imagined, was that the woman he had just humiliated in front of everyone was not as alone as she appeared. The judge was not just a symbol of the law. She was Aaliyah's mother. Years ago, when Aaliyah was young, her mother had chosen duty over comfort, dedicating her life to justice after escaping an abusive marriage herself. To protect her daughter from public scrutiny and accusations of favoritism, she had kept her distance professionally, loving Aaliyah from afar, watching silently as her daughter navigated a world that often punished kindness. She had known about the marriage. She had known about the suffering. But she had trusted Aaliyah's strength and waited for the moment when the law could finally speak without bias. That moment had arrived. The judge's presence transformed from neutral authority to an unyielding force of protection. The law moved swiftly. Zion's influence meant nothing now. Evidence that had been quietly gathered surfaced. Medical reports, witness statements, financial records, and private communications painted a clear picture of long-term abuse and manipulation. The slap was no longer an isolated act, it was the final proof in a pattern of cruelty. Aaliyah was taken care of immediately, surrounded by professionals who treated her with the respect she had been denied for so long. For the first time in years, she felt safe enough to cry freely. Not the quiet tears of endurance, but the releasing tears of someone finally seen. Zion's downfall was as dramatic as his rise. His reputation crumbled in days. Business partners distanced themselves. Boards removed him. Media headlines shifted from praise to condemnation. The same power he once used to silence others now amplified his disgrace. In court, stripped of control, he looked small, a man exposed by his own actions. But this story was never about revenge. It was about justice, about the quiet strength of women who endure until the moment they no longer have to. Aaliyah's life did not magically become perfect overnight. Healing took time. Trauma does not disappear with verdicts. But she rebuilt herself piece by piece, supported by a mother who no longer had to watch from the shadows. As her child was born months later, Aaliyah understood something deeply important. Strength does not always roar. Sometimes it survives. Sometimes it waits. And sometimes, when the moment is right, it stands up in a courtroom and changes everything. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that kindness and courage still matter in a harsh world, please take a moment to like this video, share it, and subscribe to Kindness Diaries. Your engagement helps these stories of hope reach more people who need them. Before this story ends, we have a special request for you. Comment below and tell us what strength means to you, or share a message of support for anyone facing injustice silently. Aaliyah's journey reminds us that no matter how powerful someone appears, the truth has a way of rising. Love may be tested, patience may be stretched, but dignity is never lost when we choose to protect it. And sometimes, the hand that delivers justice is the same one that once held you as a child, promising that no matter what the world becomes, you will never be alone.